It is Wednesday. It is July 2nd, and this is the DLLS Stars podcast as we say happy hump day. That's Ludz's favorite day, I think. Actually, I think his favorite day is probably a weekend. But
hey, they're all weekends now.
There you go.
It was definitely a weekend for you yesterday, eh, Lutz?
Yeah, it was a day off. What do they call that? A PTO? It was kind of like, you know how when you tell us like 10 minutes before you're supposed to show up and you're sick and you're in the hospital or something's leaking out of a body part that's not supposed to? It's the same kind of thing.
I believe that in Sam World, Ludz is known as a Tuesday.
Yeah, just every day.
So welcome back to Craig Ludwig. He had what we would call a mental health day.
I was cutting the grass.
Okay. I'm Owen Newkirk. He's Sam Nestler. Elijah Smith is our producer. And Ludz, we got to ask you, when you saw I didn't even know if you were telling the truth or being funny. When you sent your text to the Google or to our group text and you said, what time's the show today? And I said, we just finished it like a half an hour ago or an hour ago. Is that when it dawned on you that the show was at 11 a.m. yesterday?
It didn't dawn on me. What happened was when I got off the mower, I didn't have my phone with me, and I got like an hour and a half of cutting grass. So I get off the mower, and I go to grab my phone, and I started early to make sure I was done to be able to take a shower for our 2:00 show. I'm done by noon. All of a sudden, I pick up my phone, and it's like, "Are you okay? Is everything all right? What's going on?" And this is where I'm going. At least the one guy in the group somebody cared. So Sam was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And I'm like, "Everything's fine. Why?" or whatever. But he never responded to anything. He didn't say, "Hey, where were you? We had an early show." And then I sent something to you, and I said, "Well, what time is the show?" And then you said, "We just finished." And I'm like, "Oh boy." I said, "Well, nothing I can do now."
To back up my own self and say that we all cared. Sam texted me and I said, "Have you heard from Ludz?" as we're doing the show, because we just figured you were going to pop in. And Sam said, "I already texted him. He says he's breathing."
Yeah,
so
that's all I got back.
Oh, I love it. We've got a big show today because Glen Gulutzan was officially introduced, and for whatever reason, Sam, we make fun of Ludz for missing the show yesterday. Sam couldn't figure out how to watch it from sunny California. So we're going to have to fake it, which, I'm sure Sam will
watch many different clips. So I'll just say what I had from the clips.
Okay. So Glen Gulutzan, we'll get to free agency, what the Stars did in future segments on today's show. But we're going to start with Gully because
I'm going to hit a button on my computer to try to turn up the volume. So I don't know what's going to happen.
All right. Brace yourselves. Let's see if he sends himself away. I'm already crying because of laughing at you guys too hard. So, and by the way, Sam, if you still can't get it, I Love Misty's right in the chat. It is posted by WFAA on YouTube. I believe they aired it live. So there, see,
perfect.
So if you can't get it on Victory Plus, rebroadcast, check that out, and you can watch it. But Glen Gulutzan was formally introduced at American Airlines Center at 11 a.m. in Dallas today. It is just past 2:00 here in Eastern time. Ludz is in Central time, so he hasn't had any changes, and Sam is now in Pacific time. So we are spread across the continental United States for the next couple of weeks. Then I'll be back in Dallas after that, and who knows when Sam will get there. And we know when Ludz will get there.
Never.
When it cools off again.
Is Sam using a green screen?
I don't know if that's a real background or not.
No,
because nothing's moving.
There's no animals out there?
I mean, the leaves aren't even moving. Nothing. There's no shadows. Nothing. I think it's all fake.
It's real. I'll go run around back there if you need me to.
Is that why you felt like you needed a pair of sunglasses on your head for our podcast?
Yeah. No, I actually didn't even know I had these on my head.
You can leave them on. It looks like you're on your way out.
It's a long day. There we go.
All right. So let's talk about. I'm looking at a private chat from Elijah. I have no idea what he's saying. Let's get focused again. Let's talk about Glen Gulutzan. He was formally introduced, and leave him on.
Dents in my head.
Jim Nill introduced him at the press conference this morning at the AAC. Gulutzan then spoke, and he kind of anticipated the questions that we saw when they formally announced him, even when we did our emergency pod later, Sunday, that some people maybe not thrilled about this. I understand there's some questions because he was the head coach of the Stars before. Luds, Sam, you guys have gone into full detail about why they shouldn't consider the 2011 through 13 Dallas Stars under Glen Gulutzan when considering his hire this time around. But Luds, we'll get into some of the details. My overarching impression was Glen Gulutzan did, to me, very well in front of the media this morning.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell. I mean, when you talk about then and now, I'll use an analogy that they talk about with defensemen. And I don't know who came up with it, but they'll say when a young defenseman, isn't really into being a good NHL defenseman or the best he can be until he's played somewhere between 250 and 300 games. So it's the experience. It's kind of the same thing for coaches. And I think Gully, everything that I was able to hear today, he talked about being a young guy a long time ago. And then he's talked about the journey along the way, about learning from three guys. I think he said that maybe Hall of Fame coaches at some point in their career. I don't know who the hell he's talking about, but I was guessing one of them was a Sutter, but in Calgary, but I don't know.
Don't you think Torts maybe would be one?
I didn't even know he was. When was he with Torts?
Was he with Torts in Vancouver? Am I mistaken that they didn't crisscross when he was part of the Canucks?
Okay. Well, I'm not
sure. Yeah, but he mentioned him by name.
But it's the fact of what he said. He goes, he's learned so many things along the way from those kind of coaches, having different kinds of players, being in different kind of systems. I mean, all the things we talk about. So if there was a different situation here, and if this all went down a lot earlier, halfway through the season, we know that there's some veteran coaches that got hired right earlier, a few months ago or whatever. My guess would be that Jim Nill and his staff may have been knocking on some of those doors prior to Gully, because they have won championships, and so you're looking for that. So, but again, I think the biggest thing that we talked about is that Gully's been around two of the best players on the planet, and to be able to manage those guys and know how to manage them and learn mannerisms from the best players in the game, and there are some of the best players in the game on this Dallas team yet. And so I think he's just gonna be more of a chill kind of guy than some Hitler kind of, sitting and pointing your finger and yelling and screaming. And I can go back to a couple of coaches back there. So he's just more mature.
Sam, from the clips you watched, what was the impression you got?
Yeah, no, I think Leah posted it and said he won the press conference, right? That's a good way to put it. He looked so comfortable, so calm, and as you said, Owen, he anticipated the things he needed to bring up, and whether it was asked or he just brought it up. He talked about his previous tenure and the lessons he learned. He talked about how he came in at a really bumpy time for the organization, but he didn't just put it on that either, right? That's the easy way to put it, is say what we said. It was the league owed the team. They didn't have any players. They were all these things. He also owned some of that and said, I also came in and I tried to overcoach a lot of things. I tried to X's and O's the puck into the back of the net, especially using on the power play. And now he's learned lessons. And I think you can see those things. I mean, he over and over again talked about in interviews before he took this job, and obviously now this morning talked about his lessons that he learned and how much he would go back and tell himself, go back and do those things again. Like he doesn't look back and think, I wish I had done this differently. He goes back and looks at it as, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm where I am. It's because of the lessons I learned, the hardships that I went through, the tough year, first when he came in Edmonton, and how he had to kind of shift that around to become what is now the most lethal power play and all these things. So I just think the growth and the comfort level is what people wanted to see, because people want someone coming in. They don't want, the big fear of Stars fans right now is steps back, right? I know Luds has talked about it. They don't want the organization to take a step back here. They want them to keep pushing forward. And I think Nill and Gulutzan this morning both pushed that agenda and said, we're coming in knowing the team doesn't need, I can't remember the exact word he used, knowing they don't need to take a full change. We don't need to flip this whole thing around. We need to take a couple of steps forward. And that's the way they're going into it, with a comfort level and an understanding. And I really like that about it.
We're going to see how long this all lasts, because there's a different level of pressure now. He is the guy, right? We can talk about it's easy and this and I'm calm and all that kind of stuff, but And I did hear a part about, talking about Elaine and the PK, and he's done a great job there. And apparently Neil will have something to do with the power play, but he ultimately oversees everything. So if it starts going sideways early, we'll see if that calm demeanor is still there.
It's a great point, Luds, because a coach, when he's hired, or she should win the press conference, right? That should be the easiest day of their head coaching career, because they're coming in with full of optimism, the rubber stamp of the general manager that just hired them, right? It should be a no-brainer. So if anybody has a really bad opening press conference, that's when you start to put off the alarm bells, because frankly, right, all the possibilities and hope and optimism are in front of you. As Lud says, once you start to get some adversity, we'll see how he handles. I just think, Luds, that there's a difference in his style. And you said this, there's going to be a different feeling. But you could see it too. His way of joking around and bringing some lightness to a press conference is different than the way that Pete DeBoer did it. And I'm not here to say one is better than the others, but there are differences in style. And I think we'll notice that both from an X's and O's and a general sort of how you handle players, which in today's NHL is as important as the tactical stuff, which we'll get into. But just the way you approach players, communicate, and deal with them individually as humans. Lud, you know how it is. Players are human. They're not robots. And there are a lot of things going on behind the scenes that people and fans don't see. It's human to human interactions between teammates, whether they like something they said, or they, personality clashes, or personal life things off the rink that sort of get into the locker room. Those are very important things for a head coach to manage.
Yeah. And I think thinking about that as you were talking, another thing that he didn't do in the presser, he didn't make any guarantees about anything. Sometimes coaches will come and say, we're going to play, we're going to do this, we're going to be that, we're going to do that. He kind of gave you a glimpse of what he would like to be able to have this team do and change a couple little things. So that you can't go back and listen to some of those clips and go, wait a second, like Paul Maurice did when he said, well, our guys are going to figure it out in game 62. That one somehow happened, and they did, and he goes on to win a Stanley Cup. So Belly didn't do those kind of things. So I think I think this press conference for him was measured. I think he knew how he was going to go about it. He's already been in this market one time, whether people want to write it up as good, bad, indifferent, not his fault, organization's fault, whatever. But I think he came in smart. And again, I think that's part of being experienced and being in enough of those pressers where he's worked with other head coaches.
Sam, I don't know if you heard the line from Jim or not. It might have been one of the clips, but he said this yesterday and he reiterated it this morning, which is he didn't think that the change of voice was necessarily the biggest issue as far as why he made a coaching change, but he actually stressed that there will be some philosophical differences. And I thought that was rather interesting. So it's not just, okay, well, maybe you're tuning out Pete DeBoer after 3 years. It's, we want to change how we're doing things a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of fans, and I think that's what we wanted, right? We were wondering if they were going to make a shift, not a huge one, like I just mentioned before. They don't need to completely flip everything around, but a shift in philosophy, a shift in structure to be a better team when the most important time of the year comes around. And Glenn said it himself this morning too. He said he wants to play a little bit more physical in order to adjust that into the playoffs. And like we said, I forget if it was Peter or Jim that said it, is that they don't want to have to turn a page and flip the script once they get to the playoffs. Play this way for 82 to win a conference or be a high seed, and then have to change the way you play. It just doesn't work that way. And that's why Florida's been so successful. That's why Edmonton was successful. They play the same way through 82 games and then into the playoffs. And if you look at the way they went about day one, they made themselves bigger, stronger, and tougher to play against. Not a ton, but they brought in a guy who we know can do that. They brought back a guy who we know can do that. And now they're talking about shifting the philosophical way of doing things a little bit to be tougher to play against. I love it. And I think that Gulutzan talked about building players' confidence and building a confidence in a team, and preparation being the biggest part of that, right? And I think that that's kind of the way maybe they're going to shift this. It's not going to be handed to us. We're not going to be a team that's just going to be right back in the Western Conference Final, and all we have to do is win 3 more games to make the Stanley Cup. We have to earn this, just like Pete said last year. And I think instilling that right now and instilling the way they want to play the game this summer going into camp is going to be huge for this team to be able to know exactly what role they need to play, what style they need to play, and be comfortable going in. And not, the biggest thing is, don't have question marks going into the season. Know what team you are, know what kind of team you want to become. And I think that's a key. And so far, I like what I hear.
Okay, so Luds, hold that thought, because I know you've got some opinions about physicality. Sam rattled off a whole bunch of talking points. We're going to get into more of those next here on the DLS Stars podcast.
But now I get to rattle off a whole bunch of reasons to get Monarch money. Monarch money makes finance simple because finances are messy. They can be messy and confusing, but Monarch money acts like your personal CFO, so you can get full visibility and control and stop earning, start growing. It's more than just your average budgeting app, though. It puts everything in a complete financial command center for your accounts, investments, and goals to make everything super simple and right there in front of you. So don't just manage your money, start building wealth with 50% off your first year for listeners of DLS. That's how we do it. Start managing your finances to build a life you actually want, because without that clear financial picture, the dreams can feel out of reach. Monarch Money makes managing money simple, and even for busy lives. Finance tool people actually love, over 1 million households so far, and it's named Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025. I don't think you need any other reasons to sign up. So get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use code DLLS at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code DLLS.
All right, thanks, Sam. Let's talk about Empire today. Well, just like your favorite team needs a home ice advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today has flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. We've all been to those big box stores. You wander endless aisles, and you somehow find yourself hauling all these materials home, looking for an installer, coordinating everything by yourself. Well, whether or not you can have help from somebody that knows about flooring, or maybe knows about sinks or stocking light bulbs. Nothing wrong with stocking light bulbs, of course. That's why you need Empire Today, because all they do, live and breathe flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. It's a whole different ball game. Their flooring experts bring the showroom right to your home. You can pick the right flooring and the right colors for your space, see how your furniture looks in your house. Plus, you get precise measurements, and of course, have all your questions answered up front and clear all-inclusive pricing. Schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. DLLS listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code DLLS. Yes, you heard right. A $350 discount with code DLLS. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/DLLS for full details. Okay. I have a couple of bing bongs. Luds, give me a bing bong, please.
Bing bong.
Mark, super chat, a $5 Nils Lundqvist and year after the cup. Gully wants to be more physical in the playoffs, but does he have the roster to do this? Simon says, quote, be more physical. Lud's another bing bong, please.
Bing bong.
Ken Murphy Photography with a Ben and a Ludwig. I heard one thing, we will be more physical. Love it. So 2 really good super chats to exactly the point we wanted to talk about, which is, Gulutzan said, and Luds, I know you heard this because we were talking about it before the show started, and I'm pretty sure Sam just rattled off about 4 or 5 talking points that had to do about this. So
What I do.
Not Pete DeBoer. Oh boy, first slip of the day. Glen Gulutzan said in his press conference today that he, to Sam's point, he's not trying to reinvent the wheel. He is trying to take this team and make about what he called a 1% adjustment. He said, this isn't a 20% change in culture, philosophy team. He said, this is already a good team. And he even used the line, there are about 7 or 8 teams in a given year. Realistically, they have a shot to win the Stanley Cup, not 32. And he said, Dallas is one of those teams. Luds, this immediately thought of your reactions to this. He said, I want to see our team play 1% more physical. I want to change our forechecking to help us with that, but we can't do it, speaking of light bulbs, flipping a light switch, which is turning on that physicality for the playoffs. He said, we need to do this from games 1 to 82 so that we are ready to do it for game 83. And I thought that spoke right to what you were talking about the Stars lacking, especially in that 7-game losing streak going into the playoffs this year.
I might have used a percentage maybe a little bit higher than 1. I'm not really sure what 1% more is. It's like, there you go.
Brings you up to 5.
Gotcha. I don't know. It's a grade. It's a flyby. But what he's saying is what, I mean, me personally, I like to hear. And again, if you look at the roster, and I'm hoping it's not done, we have the same players. So I don't know who's the 1%er. You know, I mean, so there are 1%ers, but they're called Hell's Angels and they're called the Banditos. And so those are the 1%ers. Unless we're grabbing some of those guys, I don't know. Does that mean that there's going to be another extra guy in there? I don't think the decor got any more physical than what it is. So, but I think what you're basically trying to say, as a group, we're going to be a little bit more difficult to play against. And so we're not going to give any easy games to our opponents. And if we do that from game 1, you're going to find that you're going to have success. I believe that they're going to have a little bit more. Will they score 5 and 6 goals a game? Maybe not. But I think they'll control the game a little bit more. I think you're going to frustrate teams a little bit more, which would lead me to the forecheck. I mean, he may have a little bit more aggressive forecheck, or maybe he doesn't have. Maybe it's just the opposite. Maybe it's more about F1 goes in and you kind of dictate what side of the ice you're going to move the puck out to, and then 2 and 3 adjust from there. And what you end up doing is you create more turnovers in the neutral zone. Maybe that's what he means by that kind of a forecheck. So, I mean, if you look at the way that if he's taking parts of what Edmonton did, you know, but again, Edmonton has a couple of guys that can get on people. They're not necessarily physical guys, but they're skaters. So the whole concept, what I hear from Gully is everything that I've been kind of brainwashed into believing is game 1, as he said, or game 25 should not be different than game 83 or game 87. It just, you're like robots. You do the same things and you have success. And where it becomes important is as the season goes along and you're playing a little bit more difficult to play against and you're having success. Now, as a group, that's what becomes the conversation in the group. It's not with the coach and the players, it's the group. And Hitchcock had made that comment to me a few times. And he goes, you know, when the happiest time I was when I was on the bench coaching is when all the things I was barking at you guys with that, and I had to stay on you and stay in it and get you guys, you know, mentally changed as a unit, as group of 20. He goes, is when I heard the message coming from the guys sitting in front of me. He goes, then I just kind of sat back, which was a bunch of BS because he didn't know how to sit back. But the point was, he was hearing his message come out of the players. And now you're like, because that particular coach and that coaching staff and the general manager believe that this is how you're going to win a championship someday, guys. And so they believed in that process. And so they tried to implement that process. And then we bought in as a unit. We all bought into it. And if you didn't buy into it, if you guys remember in the first 2, 3, 4 years, guys were gone. And it's like, yep. And I remember him saying something about a really good player and his banners hanging in the thing. And this came from the GM at the time. And he had said something to me. He goes, I don't want a 500 guy. And I was like, and I didn't say much to him because I was wrong, whatever I said. And then I got asked the question, do you understand what I'm saying? I'm like, no, not really. He goes, well, I don't want players that are happy when we win 2 games and then we lose 2 games. And then we win 2 games, we lose 2 games. He goes, we're going to get to the point where we're just on autopilot. And when we lose a couple games, the coach doesn't have to lose his mind. The players are going to lose their minds. So that's what I think I hear from Gully. And again, it's a process, and guys got to get used to him. He's got to get used to guys. But I think that he will have patience in the first 20 games. You know what I mean? Like, I'm implementing the new little forecheck, whatever it may be. He's going to have patience in there. Then he's going to start holding guys accountable if everybody's not on board.
Yeah. Hey, Luds, I have a question. Can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead.
I wrote about this yesterday. It goes with the physicality, so I figured I'd ask now. I know everyone, or at least most people, loved the idea that Pete DeBoer brought in of rolling 4 lines, right? It seems like a great idea on paper. You never know, you never have a break. You got 4 lines rolling at you that are expected to score, be in the offensive zone. The flip side of that is, can that ever take away a little bit from your role guys? So, like, are you a more physical team if you have a top 6 and a bottom 6, and your bottom 6 is more of the steel Blackwells, Bens, Faksas, and they know their role, which is to be physical, be on the forecheck, hem guys in, not try to go score 10, 15 goals. Can that actually affect it? Like if Glen Gulutzan came in and said, we have our top six, they're going to be our guys that mostly score our goals. Here's our bottom six. They know their role. Can that actually be a good thing instead of the idea of just rolling four lines that are supposed to kind of all look the same?
See, I don't think you change things if your top six are going to continue to be skilled guys and your bottom six are your role guys. I think you sprinkle in that kind of a player on each line if you can have it. When I look at, and you guys were writing down lines and stuff like that, and obviously it looks like Robo's going to be back and Robo may be playing up there with Hintz, and well, that's what we think. I think you can get away with, there's your line, there's your dangerous line where you suck in the other team's forechecking line or whatever, however they want to go about it. They may put their top offensive line, but then what you have is you have 9 other guys. I don't want to say all of them, but the identity of that physical play comes with the other 9, the bottom 9, or however you want to phrase it. So I don't know to be honest with you, I'm looking at this and I don't know where that physical guy is in the lineup. I just don't know which one it is. Besides, in the back, I get Bischel. Yeah, I get Bischel.
Yep.
Give me one of the top forwards up there that's a physical guy.
Well, to this point, can Gulutzan get the guys that he currently has on the roster to just be a little more physical? They don't have to be a wrecking ball,
100%.
But if it could that be enough, Luds?
Physical
has skill and still hit.
But physical doesn't mean running guys through the boards.
Right.
All I want you to do is and I've said this before with some players, like they skate so hard to a defenseman, for instance, we'll just say that gets on the puck, and then they're within a foot of them, and then that defenseman moves it to his partner, and then they just kind of swing and go to the next guy. Well, then your other guy has got a job to do there. You finish that defenseman. And I'm not saying if he's 4 feet away, but when you're right there, like Bork has got to finish, right? And I'm talking about everybody. And Duchesne's got to finish, and Tyler's got to finish.
Colin Blackwell can't be the only one that goes crashing into the net.
Human steel. Yeah. I mean, you can't just have those guys. And so, like, it's got to be everybody. Like when you watch, even Randon got involved last year when he first got here. But if you can have Hintz finish, and we know Robo's not going to run anybody out of the building. But if you're standing next to the guy that made the puck and you're on the forecheck, just finish him, take him out of the play, make sure that he doesn't become available to get something back. And then and I think what you'll, as an opponent, you're going, Jesus, I'm getting bumped every single time, and so now it ends up being like you've got these big boots on and you're going through a swamp and you're trying to walk through the mud and everything like that. And I think as games wear on, and especially as series wear on, you start to push other teams out of it. Not the old way of pushing them out where it's just constant, like a battering ram every single time. But that's why I like to see just one of those so-called a little bit more physical presence on each line that he's going to be. And that guy usually has to be a skater. You know what I mean? Like, so he can be the first guy in on the forecheck, and he initiates that. And then maybe that pass isn't so good. Then you got F2 that comes in, and again, he's not running them through the boards, but I know he's coming. I got to hurry up my play. I think that takes an effect mentally on teams.
And if they do it throughout the season, I do like that. It's not about flipping a switch. Now, the intensity does change in the playoffs, so you have to be ready for that difference. But Luds, the last thing I wanted to throw at you about this was the comments that Gully made about making adjustments and how different he is as a coach now than he was 12 years ago when he was fired as the Dallas Stars head coach.
What Gully, I think what he's saying by that, he recognizes more things during the course of a game that the other team is doing. And again, we talk about that in the playoffs all the time. It's more apparent in the playoffs when they can go from the third or fourth shift in a game, an opponent will change something, and you have to be able to adjust to it. So as you go through the regular season, you don't have just one forecheck. You don't have just one kind of PK and one kind of power play. I love it as if I'm a penalty killer, I would prefer that both units have the same way on the power play. Love it. But when they have 2 different ways, well, then we have to kill 2 different ways. And the same thing from the PK, from the power play, and 5-on-5. If they're finding a certain way that they're breaking out, then we're going to take that away because that's their go-to breakout. Let's change right now. Let's change that. But if we see that it's affecting what they're doing, then we stay where we are. And then I think what happens there is there's all this pre-scouting that goes on out there. So all of a sudden you're playing another team in 3 days from now, and they've scouted you for the last 3 games. They know what you're doing. We're able to change it right now, guys. We're going to change this right now. I think those are the things you can use the regular season for. I think there's just too many teams that come into the league, and they're more on the middle to the bottom of the team. Just you as doing radio and doing podcasts and stuff like that, you know how they forecheck. I know what their power play is going to look like. I know who's breaking it out. I know the two guys that are swinging behind. You don't think that the guys are playing the game have every single thing figured out? Like, change it up all the time. Be predictably unpredictable.
Well, if you haven't heard enough of Luds, we got more.
Oh no,
it's Mando time here on the
Yes.
DLS Stars podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, they could use some Mando up there in Wisconsin. A lot of guys that are in the woods. Mando is a men's deodorant brand that's hyper-focused on keeping every aspect of a man's body smelling fresh and clean. Every single aspect. Mando overtly calls out more colorful parts of men's bodies, such as pits, belly buttons, the rocks, butt cracks, grundles, and even your feet. I picked up on that this morning. Even your feet. Who's using deodorant on their feet? Their scents are geared towards men like Bourbon Leather, Cloverwoods, Mount Fuji, and remember, I forgot this the other day, Pro Sport. Created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal BO was being misdiagnosed and mistreated, clinically proven to block odor all day and up to 72 hours. I don't know about that one. But here's the best one that I found. 12 hours after a shower. Okay, 12 hours after a shower. The average man's grundle, that's your taint, your nacho, whatever, odor level was a 5 out of 10. With Mando, the average grundle order is level 0 out of 10. Really don't stink, apparently, if you use that. Now, who wouldn't want to be part of that user research group? Who goes in and sniffs the grundle after 12 hours? Like,
that's a dirty job.
All right, well,
that was my job before DLLS.
Mando.com and be a grundle sniffer.
All right, let's talk about True Fan Travel. Boy, Luds, you never disappoint. We are heading to Las Vegas. Well, we aren't, but DLLS is with True Fan Travel for the ultimate fan experience. DLLS is taking over the Strip for an unforgettable weekend in Vegas, and you need to be there. Join us as the Cowboys take on the Raiders on November 17th. That's Monday Night Football. It's at Allegiant Stadium. This all-inclusive trip includes a 3-night stay at a luxury Vegas resort, game tickets, VIP parties, exclusive events with the DLLS Cowboys crew, and fellow diehard fans, and much, much more. This is how Dallas does Vegas. Book now at truefantravel.com. And remember, it's not the DLS Stars show going, it's the Cowboys. And John, our old producer, abandoned us just so he could go on this trip. So you know it's going to be a lot of fun.
Rude.
All right. I know. Rude indeed. Let's get to the other part of this. Luds, Sam, Radek Faksa is back as a Dallas Star. So too is Colin Blackwell. He didn't leave. But Dallas in free agency yesterday wasn't totally quiet. There were some other teams out there, by the way, that their fan bases were complaining, whining, grumbling about them not doing a whole lot. Winnipeg, I believe, is one of them. Minnesota didn't really make a huge splash, even though they finally have those big buyout shackles off from Parisi and Suter. But the Dallas Stars did re-sign, even with very little cap space, and now, in fact, negative cap space at the moment, Colin Blackwell to a 2-year contract at the league minimum, $775,000. And then, after 1 year with the St. Louis Blues, they brought back Radek Faksa, 3 years, $2 million per year. There was some confusion by people that read it wrong or saw this $2 million AAV for the next 3 years for Faksa. Sam, what are your thoughts about both of those signings? Because then, we're going to give Luds a chance to talk about physicality.
Yeah. I mean, the big one is, like we just talked about before, is the shift, right? That's a clear one. Blackwell, we thought he would be back. It was a pretty obvious. He was probably willing to sign for the league minimum or a little bit more. He loved it here. He loved his role here. And we talked about on yesterday's show, while we broke that live, that he is someone who understands he probably has more of a role even this year. It's not as deep of a team. We don't know what their roster is going to fully look like, but it's not going to be a team where he's probably going to be getting scratched in a bunch of playoff games. So for him, it's a big one. We know what he brought. Excellent on the penalty kill, a lot of speed. Speed is one of his biggest underrated things that we saw. And the biggest reason he stood out so much in the playoffs was that he came on. He wasn't just heavy and went to the net and crashed and scored a couple big goals, but he's a very fast skater. He gets on opponents quickly. He's exactly what Lutz is talking about, and getting there as the F1 and putting pressure on the puck. So I love that one for the Stars. And then the Faksa one, the price is interesting. However, after taking a few hours to think about it and look at what else was going on, everybody's getting paid what we would call overpaid. And I think that's just because the salary cap's going up. Everything's kind of shifting with the NHL right now, and overpaid is going to quickly become the norm, I think, now in the NHL. So for Radek coming back here, Jim said it perfectly, I believe, yesterday after free agency. He said, we missed Radek last year, especially in the playoffs. And that couldn't say more about why they brought him here. They brought him here because he is a heavy, physical, excellent on the face-off dot, penalty killer, goes in hard, plays 100%. You know exactly what you're going to get from him. And I think that the Stars, I mean, think about how much they could have used him on a third or fourth line last year against the Edmonton Oilers. It's not, as Lud said, changing the whole team. It's not all of a sudden going to make them the Florida Panthers, but it is going to make them heavier and harder to play against. And it now gives them another option of a penalty killing forward so that they don't have to rely as much on putting guys out there that, I mean, why would you want Rope Hands killing penalties if you're this team? The guy gets hurt a lot. He's your most valuable offensive player. The more you can have role players to fill in those spots and don't have to put in your skilled guys in those roles, the better. So I think originally I thought that's a good amount of money for someone like Faksa. But as soon as you look into it more and think about it more, I think it's an excellent addition for this team. And that's why I asked Luds about the way they run the lines, because it looks to me like this is going to be a team that has either what Lud said, which is one or two physical guys on every line, or it's going to have at least a fourth line, if not a bottom six, that's going to go out there and bang some bodies. So I like it.
So let's talk about Foxes individually, and then we can get back into who plays where and how it affects the top four lines of forwards. Do you agree with Jim Nill that the Stars miss Radek Faksa's play and style, especially in the playoffs this past year?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a weighty guy, and as Sam said, I think the biggest thing about him is his ability to win some faceoffs, and it's not really about winning them, not losing them. So you don't lose them clean, and obviously his size. But I mean, again, is he putting you over the edge? No, but I think he's a piece. Like Sam said, he's a piece. He's a step in moving into being a little bit heavier, right? I mean, he's St. Louis. He's playing 12, 13 minutes a game, so it's not, and again, that's the minutes that he plays. So. To be a fourth line centerman, yeah, of course. And I think PK and those kind of areas, the face-offs, and I look at the end of periods, at the end of games where you're up a goal and you can put a guy like that out there to win an important draw and tie guys up and be hard to play against in corners. And when he goes into the wall or into a corner against somebody, that player is not coming out. To me, that just sends a message more about, hey, we want more of our guys to play like this. Doesn't mean that you're going to dumb your game down, but you can add a little bit of that grit and that heaviness. I just think he's a heavy player. I don't think he's going to go out there and scare a lot of people. I think what you get when you get with him is it's going to be hard to get through him.
Sam, let's talk about the possibilities, how you use them a little bit. Now, we don't know for sure what we're going to see from a Glen Gulutzan coach team with Neil Graham and Elaine Nasruddin as his two primary assistants. Of course, Jeff Reese, the goalie coach. We're familiar with everyone because they've been in Dallas at one stage or another. All of them have. But you put in your article one thing that we had a friendly disagreement on our group text about, which is who plays in the top six, because I think it's probably going to be Robertson, Hintz, and Rantanen as your big number one line. I think that can work. Hintz and Robo were a pairing. They found Joe Pavelski, and that worked out very well. We also, of course, added Mikko Rantanen. That should be a really good top line. Duchesne and Sagan, great chemistry. Who plays with them, to me, is the big question mark, because you have Wyatt Johnston, who I think it would be an interesting idea to try. Like, you signed Duchesne to be a center, and he's a really good center. I think that plays into his playmaking style, but you have, especially with adding Faksa, a lot of guys that can play in the middle. Eric Bork, of course, is a wing. He can play center. Oscar Beck's been a winger. He's a center. You have a lot of centers. That's fine. But I just wonder, of course, Tyler Seguin was a center for a big part of his career, and he can still do it. I just wonder, would you consider putting Wyatt Johnston up on your second line, because he's probably your most, at this stage of his career, skilled offensive player that's not currently in one of those top two lines. So if you go Duchesne on the left, because he's a left shot, with Johnson in the middle and Sagan on the right, then that allows you to move Sam Steele up because, as Led said, you have Faksa for your fourth line center. I like how that balances out. But you have Jamie Benn with Duchesne and Sagan. It's the grumpy old men sort of version. Do you think that works?
Yeah, I think I said to you, you only have so many options sometimes. And right now we are filling holes versus having players that fill those holes, right? We're trying to find something that could work versus having something that automatically goes in there. So I'm not saying Jamie Benn is your solution there. I think what I'm looking at when I say that is what Luz was talking about, having that type of player on every line. And I'm hearing some murmurs that this team may want to try out Duchesne with Rantanen to see if that is a potential option as well. So I just think if you're going to put someone at wing, Johnston is the one who's played that before, and I think it affects his game less. So does that mean top line right wing and Rantanen's on the second, or second line right wing, or can Johnston even play on his offside? That's all the questions they're going to have to ask, right? I don't have the answers, but the one key that you just said that I was thinking about yesterday and Lud's brought up is when they sign Radek Faksa, tell me that doesn't immediately say we think Sam Steele could play up our lineup a little bit. And we saw it last year. And he is that. Not only is he that kind of player, Lutz is talking about bringing a little more physicality and stuff to a line, but he's got the skill to do it. It's not like you're putting up, no offense to Radek Faksa, but it's not like you're saying Radek Faksa is going to go play on your second line wing. It's a player that has the skill to play.
And let me throw this at you to that point. Could you move, instead of messing with everybody, could you keep Johnson in the middle of the third line with Ben and Bork and put Sam Steele up there on the left wing with Duchesne?
It's about time somebody said that. I was waiting for you two bozos. I'm sitting here going, I saw your things yesterday, and I'm like, I don't even know what they're doing, these two idiots. Like, I saw you guys going back and forth. But the point is, like,
the thought exercise.
So they sign Blackwell to a 2-year deal, right?
Yep.
Okay. They've got Oscar Beck. They've got Sam Steele. You bring in Faksa. I think that guy playing next to Matt Duchesne is not here yet. That's what I think.
And
I think there's some interesting parts there that you can move for somebody, but and that could be at game 40.
I was going to say, is that the trade deadline?
But
more
take
than
Sam
right now?
Steele and put him up on the left wing there. Then you keep Wyatt, because all the talk for 3 years now has been Wyatt is a centerman. We want Wyatt. We got the best three centermen. Now we're going to move one of them out. You got your 3 centermen there. Sam Steele he's a north-south kind of guy anyways, and he gets in. There's your guy that gets in forechecks. There's your guy that is a shift disturber. Okay, so just with an S.
enunciated.
Okay, so you can have Hintz, and then you have Duchesne, then you have Wyatt, then you have Faksa down the middle of the ice. And I don't think the fans would like to hear this. I don't think Jamie Benn's going to be playing up on your number 2 line. I think Jamie would be a really good line mate for Radek Faksa. I mean, if you want guys to play hard against, Faksa, Jamie, and Blackwell for now. I mean, there's a tough line to play against. So that's where I would be going. I mean, the only problem for me then is now who's in that third left wing spot. Yep. Is that, I mean, I don't know. I saw that. I think you guys were kind of high on Blumel, and then he left. He jumped ship, and he left.
Well, he had 39 goals in the AHL, right?
Yeah. So I don't know if that would have been a guy that could have played with Wyatt and Bork, or was he a lefty or righty?
Blumel was a lefty. He played right wing, but he was a lefty. But he could play. I'm curious.
To me, that seemed like that could have been a guy that you could have slid in on that third line on the left side. But the other side of the thing is too, though, I don't know if anybody wants to handcuff. And wrong way to put that. I think you want Wyatt to be able to play with some good players. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's make sure that Wyatt can take advantage of everything that he does. And a lot of times it can be on the passing side of things, setting guys up, not just what he can do. So I just don't think they're done. I just think that the market's not there for them. It's too pricey right now. What we're going to do is we're going to sew this thing together as much as we can. And we know that we can be a really good team if we add a couple more pieces or whatever it may be, and something in the back end. But if we're not fighting for first in our division, then we're not fighting for first in our conference. We're just look at the teams that are getting in and winning the Stanley Cup. They're not in number 1. So.
Yeah, Luds, my only question was what you just said, which is what Wyatt, a lot of fans and people are concerned that Wyatt just gets kind of buried on that third line, right? It's a good idea to have Hintz, Duchesne, Wyatt, and Steele or Faksa, whatever. But when you're just kind of throwing together, and no offense to these guys, Ben, Bork might take a huge step this year, right? We hope that I think he needs to, but I just don't want to see Wyatt because they want him at center. All of a sudden he's on that line and he's just kind of getting thrown with different partners and pairings because they don't have anyone left. That's why I wonder whether they want to move him up to a wing, and maybe Sagan's the one who comes down and plays.
How many times this year, Sam? How many times this year did you see Knobloch and Edmonton move guys around and take McDavid and best players in the world, but the Hymans and and even with Trent Frederick and Corey Perry, how they're moving guys all over the place. Gully was in that. He watched it work, and so move Wyatt around. Wyatt doesn't have to just be he's our centerman. The game isn't going your way. Shake it up a little bit. Take Wyatt and put him up there. Move Rantanen over to the left side if you want. Put Wyatt up on the right side with Hintz. Like I think that you can kind of freelance a little bit. And I think that when you play with a team like Edmonton that has been searching for whatever they're searching for, and they've got 2, 3, 4 really good players on that thing, they're kind of throwing them all over the place, and they're having success doing it. So learn from it.
Up next, guys, we're going to talk about where the where the Dallas Stars free agents that went elsewhere ended up landing, and maybe a few news and notes around the league, because it was a busy day, tons of free agency, even if it was a quote unquote quiet one from Big Fish. Lots to talk about next here on DLLS. But let's start with the ball knower bonus. It's back here at DLS, and we have a new challenge for you. You can win a gift card to the ALLCITY merch store if you make your pick correctly. Here's how it works. First, you have to pick a winner. This challenge is who's going to win the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, which is coming up on July 15th. American League or National League. Then you browse our store, make a purchase of at least $25 or more. If your pick wins, you win a gift card for the same amount as your original order. Here's the most important thing, besides getting your pick right and making your purchase, you must click on our link. It's in the chat. It's also in the show YouTube description. You can also check out Ball Knower Bonus on our website, alldls.com, to bet and get your gift card. So who do you think will win the Major League Baseball All-Star Game coming up at Truist Park in Atlanta on July 15th? For all ball knowers, make your pick, place an order, and if you pick correctly, you are going to get a gift card from us for the same amount as your order. That is the Ball Knower Bonus. And speaking of which, why not do the Ball Knower Bonus with the DLLS Die Hard discount? 20% off all merchandise if you are a diehard, because right now we have the Make Your Move sale going on, which is $36 for your first year. It's a huge discount off the regular annual price. And so if you have never been a diehard, sign up today. You will become a DLS diehard. You get a free t-shirt of your choice. Plus, you can then use that 20% merch discount and go buy stuff for the Ball Knower Bonus. You can get even more on top of that. Think about the shirts, the Otter shirt, the Finnish Mafia, Wyatt Johnston 16-bit, Mikko's the Finisher, the Captain, the Moose, all of those and more, all rattling through some of these stars. But we also have shirts for the Mavs, the Cowboys, the Rangers, and just DLS. Maybe you just like the big flag shirt.
By the way, Sam.
All that fun. And of course, yes, you get a discount on the Vegas trip, 20% off that as well. So all of that, alldls.com. The Moose. I love that. Of course, I'm looking at a different screen to look at my copy points, so I have no idea what they're doing to probably make fun of me giggling the whole time. It's probably better that I ignore you guys. All right. Sam, Luds, let's talk about who I guess the ones that got away. We begin, of course, with Mikael Granlund. We knew it was going to be difficult. And when you see that Mikael Granlund signed with the Anaheim Ducks, 3 years, $7 million AAV, you go, yeah, it was keep Granlund. You're not going to fit both with getting Mikko Rantanen's 12 on the cap. There's a
general manager that sees that the window is here to take a step. And that's what Beaker did. He went in there and said, here's where we're at. Made a couple of moves the guy out and starting to plug some of those areas. And I think that he, there's still a guy floating out there, and he's on the right side, I believe, though, is Nikolai Ehlers. They don't have room for him. I know that money-wise they don't have that guy. But
you think Ehlers is going to get more than Granlund 7?
I think he's going to be in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've heard Toronto. But regardless, my thing, and I think I said to Sam one time, Sam asked me about him, I believe, I'm just worried about that guy with injuries. It doesn't seem like he ever has a full season in him, right? He's such a good player. But anyway, That's what I think of Anaheim. I think they just recognize, very similar to what Jim did here and Florida did, and what Florida did it again, for God's sake. So I can't wait to be watching Brad Marchand playing when he's 45 years old and see him.
Sign a 10-year extension.
Apparently, Granlund wanted to stay and just couldn't make it work. Cody Ceci wanted to stay, but they couldn't make it work either because Cody Ceci went to Los Angeles 4 years, $4.5 million AAV. Great for Ceci for his, for the business of hockey. But yeah, there's no way you can fit that in with what they have now. Would it have been worth trying to unload Dumba and Lyubushkin's contracts to keep Cody Ceci as one of your right-sided defensemen?
I don't see. I'm just not sure if there's a. To me, Ceci and Lyubushkin were on very similar levels this year. I don't think that either one of them stands out as one that needed to be. We need to move this guy so we can fit this guy. I think that Lyubushkin was a very serviceable defenseman. I have no issue with him still being on this team. I thought he had some rough areas, but he was also taking on roles that he wasn't made for, right? If he's playing on your bottom pairing in a spot he belongs in, maybe with Bischel, I think he's a much better player. And when you're throwing him up there and all of a sudden he's with Harley on the top pairing, especially when Miro was out and he's playing the big minutes, it can be a lot. So I had no issue with that. I think CC, especially if he's going to go get $4 million or whatever that he's getting, you're not bringing that number into Dallas with a guy like Cody Ceci. So I think it's a little surprising he even got that number. I think the Kings did a lot of work yesterday, but they obviously see value, and I know they like his penalty killing because that was one area he did help this team out in as serviceable penalty killer. So I don't think there was any issue with bringing him back. If it was Dumba versus Ceci, maybe that's a different story. But in terms of Lyubushkin and Ceci, I see them as pretty similar players.
Of those three, I would be happy keeping Lyubushkin. I just think that here's what happened with Lyubushkin, because there were some speed bumps as the season went along. And if you remember how many times all of a sudden past game 40, game 50, where you'd see Lyubushkin going down the ice and taking pucks to the net, right? And he got caught up in it. And then his game fell apart a little bit in the D zone. And sometimes you just have to know who you are. And stay within yourself and be that piece. And it doesn't mean you don't get involved, but I just felt there were more times that he was jumping into the play because the other five guys are all jumping into the play. But as Sam said, if you had Leon and him as a pair, and if they wanted, depending on the system that they play in, those are two big bodies that can make it as a pair, can make it difficult for an opposing forward to want to get to the good areas of the ice in front of your goaltender. I just think that this is who you are. At the end of my career, I was playing with Bundy. I was playing with Sean Chambers, and people couldn't get there. And Bundy's he's as big as my kid's Tahoe out here, and kind of shaped like it too, as a matter of fact. But you just couldn't. I mean, that was a key ingredient, and everybody man, this is what they do. And so I just think you can have that. So, yeah, I think that Lyubushkin, I mean, not he's the lesser of three evils. But that's almost saying like they're all bad. I don't think any of them are bad. I really don't. I think Matt Dumba, wherever he goes, and if he gets a chance, he's gonna some of that confidence is gonna come back in him.
How about Evgeny Dodonov? He signed a 1-year deal with the New Jersey Devils, $1 million base and up to $2.25 million in performance bonuses. I wondered, as we were talking about our left-sided winger issue, I know he was a left shot playing on the right a lot, but he could play both sides. I mean, $1 million performance bonuses, that's something the Stars probably could have made work, but they decided to move on. And I think he and his agent decided for a new challenge. I think you're right, Luds. I think the Stars aren't done, but would Dodonov at that price, I mean, that's a super team-friendly deal for the Devils.
I just wonder if their way they were going about their business when letting guys move away and go to other places and not be a little hard, that they felt like they could get Granlund. Like they, let him go. We open up a little space, and it was almost like you were hoping he didn't go someplace else, and you were hoping that the Finns would talk him into taking a lesser deal to be here, and all that kind of stuff would come together. And at the end of the day, it was the almighty dollar that won the battle. And so I just wonder if they're like, man, we didn't see that coming. We knew that there was going to be some takers. We really thought that he liked it with this group and he might take a bit of a haircut to stay here. And, and again, if you're going to Anaheim, I don't think he's going to Anaheim because he's winning a Stanley Cup in the next 2 years, right? He went there for the money. That's all there is to it.
Well, I mean, you said your buddy Verbeek wants to make the playoffs this year, so maybe he does think that they can be part of a resurgence with the Ducks.
No, I don't. I believe that they can make the playoffs. I'm just saying he's not. I think that this team here in Dallas, we're closer to winning a Stanley Cup.
I agree. Yes.
So at the end of the day, he said, "Man, they're only offering me 4.5 or 5. I don't know what it was, but I can. I'm gonna put another 6 in my pocket at the end of this whole thing, or 7, whatever it may be."
All right, the last one that we have to get to today is Matej Blumel. Well, Brendan Smith as well. He's still out there as a UFA, but Matej Blumel, who could be an option for that left side, as we were talking about, signed with the Boston Bruins, 1 year, $875,000. It is a one-way contract. Boston has some forward depth issues. To me, Sam, this feels like a guy looking for an opportunity to stick on an NHL roster. He had 31 goals in the AHL 2 years ago. He had 39 last year. The kid can score at the AAA level. He'll get a chance to try to make the team in Boston, where he would be, I don't think, favored to make the Dallas roster out of training camp. He would have a shot, but it would not be easy.
Yeah, and I mentioned this yesterday. He had straight up told us in the room over the last couple of years that he was frustrated he wasn't getting more opportunities. And you can say whatever you want. You can say when he did come up, maybe he didn't do enough. But I think that deep down, this team was just deep. This team had depth that they didn't need to call up a guy that they weren't sure about, or didn't need to try to, take a risk with him. But from all that I hear from people around the Texas Stars this year, that frustration continued throughout the season this year as well. And he didn't show it, right? He led the league in scoring and was an unbelievable.
He showed it the right way, didn't he?
Exactly. So I think for him, I don't think there's an anger towards this organization. It's nothing like that. But I think that he said, you know what, I can go to Boston. I may be able to jump into a top 6, top 9 role here, play all season with them, show what I can do at the NHL level. And then from there, it's a 1-year deal, right? So from there, he comes in, he shows what he can do, and then he either comes back to Boston after that, or he has more options when it comes to next summer. So I just don't think that even if they had the money, they were offering it to him. I think on a personal level for him, it was time to move on. The only reason I had some doubt that was going to happen was because of the new coach, right? You can say, same as Nils Lundkvist, you can say that he's coming in, he's got a chance here. It's a new coach, potentially a new system. He might want to take another shot with this organization. But for him, on the personal level, it was more of a, let's go somewhere else where I know for a fact I've proven enough to get myself on this roster, be a contributing player to a Bruins team that really needs it, and then see what the NHL looks like. Because for him, this is not a last shot, but this is his time. He's not a 19-year-old kid anymore. It's same with Nils Lundkvist. This is your time right now to show what you can do at the NHL level. He's got a much better chance of doing that for a team where he can go in a much bigger role.
So I don't know Blumel. I've never watched him play, just hearing from you guys and other people. So if it came down to same dollar amount, same term, Blumel over Blackwell over Blumel, who do you take? And I'm talking about in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's a trade-off, because Jim Nill always likes to add veterans for low money, or keep veterans for low money, and make it harder for the young guys he doesn't just leave that space and say, it's Matej Blumel's to take. The answer to your question is Blackwell, because he's the proven element of what he brings to your team at the NHL level. Blumel is the potential for more offense and scoring, while still being hard to play against, but he hasn't been able to show it yet. And so I think it's a much lower risk move to keep Blackwell on than Blumel, because you're taking a gamble with a guy like Blumel if you hope it translates to the top level, but it's no guarantee, Sam.
Okay. How about Blackwell? How about Beck? Blumel?
Very good player, I would say.
That's my point right there. Because I think you guys I've heard glowing things from you guys about Blumel potential, right?
Yep.
And so those two players that I just mentioned, yes, I'm just asking the question. In a year from now, Blumel has his legs on him, gets an opportunity to be a regular guy, is he going to be a better player than Colin Blackwell, who's in his 30s? Is he going to be a better player and add more than Beck?
Maybe. The answer to that is maybe.
Okay.
We don't know. And here's the thing, Luds. It's not because the Stars chose not to sign him. He became a UFA under the Group 6 rule, so he chose it. I think Dallas wanted to keep him, but he wanted to go somewhere else. And I would imagine, as we wrap things up here, you've played with plenty of players in your career who just felt like they needed a change of scenery because it was the coach, it was the roster, it was the GM. They just didn't see that player as being a long-term fit for them.
Hey, I was the ringleader. Not a guy wanted to leave me.
Well, hey, I want you to be prepared for this tomorrow. We're going to let you, because you weren't here yesterday, talk about some of the offseason moves on free agency day one, including what Bill Zito did with Florida, where John Klingberg ended up, the surprise of Brock Besser, and are the Colorado Avalanche going to do anything other than let some of their guys get away? Some of those things we'll talk to tomorrow, because we are out of time. Big thank you, of course, to Elijah Smith, our producer, for the back-breathing and technologically savvy Craig Ludwig, for the I still don't think that backdrop is real Sam Nessler, and for me, sitting here in the upstate New York in-laws house, I'm Owen Newkirk. Thanks for joining us today. By the way, Luds, show at 1 o'clock Central Time tomorrow. Don't forget.
I'm headed to Smuggler, so I'll be home by 12:30 tomorrow afternoon.
Perfect.
We all silly like the mayor.